Good morning. Welcome, everybody, parents and grandparents and family members and alumni and friends. This is Putney School's 84th graduation. And welcome to the class of 2019. So seniors, I don't get to call you that for very much longer. Please take a minute before we start to thank the faculty and staff who helped get you here to this day. So I hope you're all also going to take time today to thank your parents and your grandparents and whoever else it is that's made it possible for you to be here. And to all of you families out there, I want to give you the thanks of all of us who work at the school. You have been wonderfully supportive of Putney and our community, and you've trusted us with your children, and you've been helpful to us in so many different ways. So seniors, you guys have done so much, and you have done it so well. You've not only used the word community, but you have deliberately built it. And you're leaving Putney a stronger and a happier place than you found it. When you were in 10th and 11th grade, you saw that what can happen when people are so sure that they're right, that there can't be really honest debate or learning. It wasn't really clear at that point how the community was going to get back on an even keel, but you just did it. I'm very grateful to you for that. And I think that the example that you have provided will last here. There's terrible feedback on these speakers, isn't there? Is that better? No? So Putney classes are always fairly loosely knit groups of rugged individualists, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And when I look at you, I see young adults who are already comfortable in your own skins to a surprising degree, pretty happy with who you are, eager for the next steps. Groupthink is not your way. You're all very much yourselves, and you're passionate about really very different things. But you've also realized the power of collaboration along with that respect for individualism. And that's more unusual than you may realize. And I think that the communities that you're moving into are damn lucky to get you. People tend to think of teenagers as naturally self-absorbed, but you as individuals and as a group have always done an enormous amount for others that you didn't have to do. 31 of you will remember the social activism projects you did back when you were humans. Since then, you have spent many hours of your own time organizing things for the school's improvement and enjoyment, raising money for causes you believed in, helping younger students in so many different ways. I know that you're feeling really ready to go now, and that's how it's supposed to be. But you're going to take Putney out with you into the world. Robert Chave, who many of you know from all the project weeks, he's been here. He said, Putney's not someplace you went, it's somewhere you are from. And he's been from here since he graduated in 1968. And you're literally taking a great deal of Putney with you. Remember that you've put a lot of milk and meat and vegetables and lots of maple syrup from this place into your bodies. And you've built muscles and brain cells. And you're taking all of that down the hill with you as you drive off. So you're not really leaving all of Putney behind. You're also taking ideas and friendships and a habit of saying thank you to those who wash your dishes. You're taking an appreciation of the arts, even if you're not an artist, and a clear eye for issues of social justice. You're taking a good sense of how to push an institution around to get what you want without being bratty about it. In fact, I think you've understood as well as any class I've seen the line between empowerment and entitlement, and almost always stayed on the right side of it. I thank you for that also, and hope the younger students have been paying attention. Before we move on, I'm delighted to announce that we have been given an endowed chair in English language by John Black, who is a member of the Putney class of 1942. John was educated at Putney, Harvard, and Columbia, and served in World War II, as did many of his Putney classmates. He spent his long life reading, writing, and teaching, and he wanted to help to pass along his love of language to all of us. He was also a lover of Latin and wanted to be sure that there would always be someone at the school who would work with students who were interested in studying Latin. And so he gave us the John Black Chair in English language. And I would like to introduce Josh Laughlin, the chair of our Board of Trustees, to award this chair.
Thank you all. Putney's always taken language and writing seriously, both as an art and as a way to connect with other people. Putney graduates have become novelists, script writers, poets, and journalists. Even the scientists and painters know how to use language to explore ideas and communicate their thinking. It is truly a wonderful thing that we've been given the funding for this endowed chair. This chair recognizes a critical piece of Putney's identity, and it gives us the support we need to keep pushing forward. This is Putney's fourth endowed chair, and as you will understand, it is this kind of generosity that makes everything possible here. I'm pleased to announce that the first holder of this chair will be Nathan Zweig. Nathan's daughter is occupying the chair for the moment. Nathan, as many of you know, is a master of using language to clarify and deepen thinking and to explore ideas and look for truths. And he's been a remarkable teacher at Putney and educator for all of you that have enjoyed his work. He went out of his way to learn Latin in an effort to include it in the curriculum here at Putney, and that's a remarkable thing to have done, and we're very grateful. So thank you, Nathan. graduates. You're the reason that all these people are gathered on this remarkable day. Parents, grandparents, siblings, family members, and friends, thank you all for joining us. You've been the support that has allowed this group of graduates to get to this day. Faculty, staff, and administrators, thank you all for doing what you do. You have been mentors, confidants, surrogate family, and the educators that have brought this group through their years at Putney School and helped them turn into the people they've become. Everyone here, including the classmates sitting around you, have helped you to make it to graduation. Congratulations. As you go on to the next stage in your life, you will find that you're well prepared. Whether you're off to college, embarking on a gap year, or entering the workforce, your experience here at Putney has taught you to live in a community in a way that many of your peers won't yet understand. You'll face a lot of challenges: relationships, social interactions, politics, work environments, and living situations will put you to various different tests. The skills you've developed here will allow you to navigate those situations with strength and grace. The greatest challenge you'll be faced with may be enjoying the very process of being challenged. If you can find pleasure and personal growth in everyday tasks, you will be way ahead. Whether it's education, relationships, or work, rise to the occasion and embrace it. As you've done here at Putney, learn what you can from the difficult and menial tasks in your life, and you'll always find a way forward. People say that if you find a job you truly love, you'll never work a day in your life. That's probably true. But I also know that finding that job can be a long task. It's pretty rare that one happens upon their dream early in life. Whether talking about an actual job or using it as a metaphor for life in general, many of us have to try different things before we find our true love. If you enjoy the journey, the process is much easier. So as you venture into the world, be honest with yourself and others, speak truth to power, be respectful as much as you can, and understand that we all face challenges. We're not living in an easy time, and you, the Putney School class of 2019, will make the world a better place because of who you are and what you have learned from all the people gathered here today. So on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Putney School, congratulations, graduates.
We'll now hear from the senior class speakers chosen by their class, Gloria and Izzy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to stand here today. I think one of the things that I'm going to miss the most is the disharmonious screech that emerges every assembly, mainly on the left side of Calder. I won't say the words, but you know what they are. They start with yeah and end with seniors. We haven't always been seniors, so let's make it a full circle and take it back to the fall of 2015. Back to where not a single soul would utter the words, yeah, freshman. What is it about the freshmen that wouldn't elicit a joyous cry of community? One answer may be that the community hadn't emerged yet. We had all come from different places with different ideas of what our time here would encompass. But to some extent, we all had a plan. This was my plan. I was going to work hard, get perfect scores, join every sports team and every single club available, and I was going to go to some college with a 4% acceptance rate, then go to med school and become a doctor. Needless to say, my mom was a big supporter of this plan. I thought I had my entire life figured out, and high school was simply a passage to the real deal. Then I walked into Luke Canelli's Humans in the Natural World class on a Saturday morning, and my life completely changed. Okay, so maybe the change was a bit more gradual than that. Luke Canelli didn't change my life in one day. Though I never doubted that our teachers hold that potential. I had always been an achievement-driven person. Do this, excel at that, and move on to the next level. You can imagine how devastated I was when I learned that we couldn't see our grades until the winter of junior year. It's hard to gauge what doing great is without grades. Is it the A plus kind of grade or the B minus kind of grade? I needed to know. This no grade thing put a serious dent in my master plan. So I tried every possible method to work my plan given what I saw as a major inconvenience. Plan M was to overdo everything. This didn't work out very well. Also, I think my teachers were getting a little tired of me writing unnecessarily long responses. And so was I, literally, I was sleep deprived. So I let go of it. Although I was reluctant at first, I allowed myself to tolerate and eventually welcome this experience. Some of you were ecstatic when you learned that we couldn't see our grades. I aspired to match your level of what I thought was unbotheredness. When I stopped agonizing over grades, I began learning the value of focusing on the process rather than the product, and the value of self-reflection within and outside the classroom. One of the more common phrases in Putney every September is culture shock. This is a unique community, so when all your ideas of high school have stemmed from High School Musical 1, 2, and 3, the culture shock is a little too real. We go through most of the typical high school stuff that we saw in the movies, but we're also encouraged to focus on other things, things that are bigger than us. There seems to be an attractive force pulling all the students and faculty alike to instantly become socially aware of all the issues and injustices we all face. We tend to focus on the product rather than the process and find ourselves frustrated with each other when the change is not instantaneous. This created a bit of friction among ourselves at times. However, like the grades, we tolerated and eventually welcomed the idea that it's okay to have differing opinions. We haven't always embraced this, but we have always given each other the space to grow or remain stagnant in our beliefs. There is so much beauty within the acceptance and patience that we have given each other over the past 4 years. We didn't do it all alone. Through it all, we had our teachers who have seen Putney transform many times and guide us in our growth. We were reminded many times that it's okay to be messy. It's okay to fall. We were reminded many times that the process can be messy, and that's all right. Sometimes it's okay to allow yourself to fall, but with a bit of precaution, obviously not hard enough to get a concussion. It's the rising part that really matters. I won't talk more about the value of a liberal arts education. I think we've all got the spiel memorized at this point. But the point is, we have so much time and so little time simultaneously. When we spend all our time planning for the future, we miss out on the simple joys of life. For instance, freshman year, we were all assigned plots of land at the beginning of Humans, given a yellow write in the rain notebook and sent out to survey the land. Having been a city girl most of my life, this was less than pleasant. There were bugs everywhere, and I was scared. I'd look over at my classmates who allowed bugs to crawl all over them and think, damn, these farm kids are crazy. Little did I know, these supposed farm kids would practically become my family. When the weather was nice, we'd stroll through the paths behind Keith, and every now and then would pass by plot number 38. It didn't mean much until I walked past it a few weeks ago and realized that I will leave it behind, and it will cease to be mine. Time is one of the few things that we never get to take back. I found myself thinking about time a lot this past year because when things start to matter, time starts to speed up. It feels as though it was simply yesterday that we filled out our college applications, and this morning that we received the joyous news signifying where our journey will continue, whether that is college, a gap year, or a career. Time is always passing by, and although we do not hold the power to slow down time in our greatest moments, or speed it up in our darkest moments, we do hold the power to dictate what we do with our time or how we allow moments to impact us. Before my sophomore year, I used all my time to plan what I would do in the future. While there's nothing wrong with planning ahead, I often forgot to think about the present. I didn't immerse myself in the things that I was doing, nor did I allow myself to pause and observe. I didn't want distractions, but I am now learning that a distraction is simply a matter of perspective. When I didn't allow myself to be present, I missed many beautiful sunsets. For a while, I only knew they existed when I turned on my phone and saw a sky that looked like a painting, allowing blues and pinks and orange to mix together, dancing carelessly. I missed many beautiful nights where the skies shone bright, wowing the ones who have lived here all their lives and those who have just joined the community alike. Refusing to join the emerging barefoot cult, I missed the feeling of soft, cool grass giving way to your foot on a hot spring day. I gotta hand it to Ming. She might have been onto something this whole time. I missed the crystalline figures gently falling from the sky and onto the ground, weaving a plush blanket that we call snow. I didn't miss some of your first snowfalls, and you made sure of that. But I did miss all that I thought was the mundane life because I did not give it permission to have an impact. I only gave it that permission when I felt the fleeting effect of time. I have learned that it is possible to love more than one thing. If there is one thing that we all walk away with today, it is that exploration is a beautiful and powerful thing. Putney does not venture to create a homogeneous group of students that excel at one thing. I mean, the idea alone is mortifying to us. The diversity that the school embraces has allowed every member of the community to grow in unprecedented ways, making the most bizarre and beautiful connections along the way. Senior exhibitions are just one platform that allows this to shine through, connecting music and math, jewelry and science, and so much more. Freshman social justice projects allow students to explore issues that they are curious about, showing that social issues should be in the curriculum as much as English and math. So with that said, go on, explore, try whatever version of the Putney special you encounter in life, literally and metaphorically, and don't always think too hard about it. I know I just talked about how over-planning essentially led to my own demise, but I feel as though it's appropriate to be hypocritical this one time. Let us all meet here 5 years from now. I really do look forward to seeing every single one of you at the 5th reunion. Thank you all for an unforgettable 4 years. And thank you for being here. Even though today is all about getting ready to leave this place, I'm going to start by going back in time to a distant era called freshman year. Even though it feels like a lifetime ago, I still remember my first few days at Putney. I remember sticking close to the kids I knew from middle school and playing endless get-to-know-you games with the student leaders. I remember running away from the outgoing student head of school whenever she walked towards us trying to strike up a conversation. I remember being freaked out when I saw that kids who were going to the same school as me had full-grown beards and that one of them was a freshman. After feeling like I was so mature in middle school, I suddenly felt like a child in an unfamiliar world of adults, or at least high schoolers who looked like adults. During orientation, in what felt like never-ending stretches of empty space, I spent hours at a time sitting next to the puddle with the other day students, waiting for the next mealtime or scheduled event until it was finally 9 p.m. and we could go home. Finally, after the eternity of orientation and long fall had ended, it was time for classes to start, and I got an email from Mary Beth Carroll that said, "All freshmen have music, health, and technology seminars during Monday conference blocks throughout the year. I just completed scheduling these. Please check your mailbox for the updated schedule to see which seminar you are supposed to attend tomorrow. Best, Mary Beth." I responded, "Do you mean our email mailbox or the one at our house? I have not seen anything in either, so I am a little confused." She wrote back, "In your mailbox in the post office, which is where the school store is. Does this make sense?" Of course this did not make sense. I didn't know that Putney had a post office or a school store or mailboxes for students. But being the nervous freshman that I was, I didn't respond to that email or ask anyone where to find my mailbox. I just soldiered on with the previous version of the schedule I was given, which said I had Algebra 2 in the Hughesby basement. The first morning of classes, I asked a student for directions to Hughesby, and he told me it was near the library. I didn't know where that was, which was near the gazebo. I also didn't know where that was. About 10 minutes after my first class was supposed to start, I found Hughesby, cautiously walked down the stairs, and looked for the classroom that my schedule said I was supposed to go to. I opened the door and heard a teacher speaking in Spanish. I said hi, and the teacher asked if I was in Spanish 3, and I said, no, I'm supposed to be in Algebra 2, and she told me to go check my mailbox because some things had changed on the schedule. Now I was back to square one, looking for a mailbox I didn't know existed, for a schedule I didn't know had changed, that would lead me to a classroom that I'd never seen before, that would be full of people I didn't know, and where I would be learning math that I wasn't sure I was ready to take. So I said thank you and left. At this point, pretty much everyone was in their classes, so I had to tough it out in the Putney wilderness until I found the post office on my own. I eventually found the post office, found my mailbox, and got my schedule, which said that my math class was in Library 2. At this point, we were 30 minutes into the 40-minute-long class, and I still didn't know where the library was. I walked over to the nearest building, saw that it was the library, and went inside to find my class. At this point, I was on the verge of tears. I walked into a room full of upperclassmen who did not look happy that there was another freshman in their math class. Kevin Failstop greeted me with a friendly hello, and I sat down at a table where there was an empty seat, logged on to Google Classroom, and then left about 5 minutes later. That first trimester, even though I was really happy to be at Putney, I felt an overwhelming sense of loneliness. I left school as early as possible. I never ate breakfast at school. I didn't have any social media. I didn't really enjoy socializing in the KDU, and I spent many a wild night doing homework in the library. I felt lonely, and I wished I could go back to middle school where I was a cool 8th grader and not some puny freshman adrift in a sea of scary older teenagers. Despite how much I didn't love my first trimester at Putney, there are still several great memories from freshman year. Omar and Ethan hitting each other's matching purple arm casts with sticks outside the KDU. Alexi being asked on the spot in Humans in the Natural World to define a landscape and just saying, "escape of land." And then when being asked to elaborate, just doing this with his hand. Looking through the cattle breeding books at bulls with names like Titan and Hired Gun to find the perfect match for our dairy cow in the cattle breeding lab. Seeing Ivy Dahl attend the climate summit as Vladimir Putin while wearing a blue sundress. Losing my plot of woods after the first time going out and then pretending I knew where I was going when I was actually just finding a different random spot each time. Another memory that sticks out is working on my picture book during Project Week in the same room as a senior named Liane, who was illustrating a book about her hometown in Vietnam. Although she was a very experienced artist and I was just a freshman, she was extremely kind to me and she took my art seriously. Despite other seniors' disdain for freshmen that year, she was unafraid to be nice to me regardless of our grade difference. I felt the impact that she had on me, and I knew that I wanted to be like her when I was a senior. Over the years, I have felt the community change dramatically, and I think a lot of that has been a result of seniors this year using their power to shift the culture of our school. I think more than anything, our grade is defined by kindness. I remember my freshman year when I and another freshman sat on the senior side of assembly. The students around us all stared at us and whispered about how we were sitting on the wrong side and how we should leave. I don't think that Putney has been like that this year, and I'm proud of our class for seeing how seniors treated us and deciding that there was another, kinder way to exist in the community. On seniors, can you hear me? Okay. On senior skip day, I realized it was effortless and easy to spend the day with everyone in our class. There was no one I couldn't talk to or sit down to play a game of cards with. I would never have imagined it could have been this way 3.5 years ago, sitting by myself in the library and waiting for the days to end. When I think back on Putney, I will remember walking side by side with a cow in the Harvest Fest parade. I will remember late nights furiously making art and laughing with friends. I will remember the coffee house performances and the artwork in the Courier Gallery and the incredible graffiti in the Wender bathrooms. I will remember Glenn Littledale's booming voice and Don Zweig's giddy excitement about photosynthesis and the cheese Pete Stickney would keep in his pocket to give us as a reward during farm. I will remember seeing the many twinkling stars of the Pleiades through binoculars for the first time on a cold October night and standing up in front of assembly for the first time to deliver my EPC speech in a shaky voice. I will remember the silhouette of Patrick Lewis swinging on the swing set and the distant notes of guitar and banjo playing on sunny afternoons. I will remember the feeling of a cowtail covered in shit slapping me across the face and the soft glow of the barn lights from across the field on a cloudy evening. And I will remember all of you and the amazing people you have grown into over the last few years. When we go off to college and out into the world beyond Putney, I don't think it will be any less disorienting, confusing, or scary. I know that we will have to navigate places where nobody knows us, where we are not cool, and where we don't feel like we initially fit in. But though I know that most of us will feel disoriented, this time I know that at least we will have a compass. We have learned how to find our footing in a new place and come out on the other side. We have found confidence in our voices and are more able to stand up for what we believe in, even when it is scary. And we have learned that we have power over our own actions and that we can use that power to shape the place that we are in. As you go out into your lives, keep cultivating that active type of kindness that seeks to change things for the better. Stand up to injustice when you see it, and don't let go of that sense of community and responsibility to one another that we developed so strongly here. Now it is time for us to go, to say goodbye to the friends and teachers and memories that have made this place so special. Our art has come off the walls, we've done our work jobs for the last time, and now all that's left is to say goodbye. So goodbye, Putney, and congratulations to the class of 2019. Now please join us in singing Wild Mountain Time, which is in your program book.
Tori Voigt grew up in Vermont and graduated from Putney in 2003. She went to Wellesley College, then MIT, and before long wound up working in the Obama White House. For the last 8.5 years, she has been working at Google in San Francisco. She is also an artist, rock climber, activist, and all-around ass kicker, as I understand. Every once in a while, she comes back to Putney for a few days, stays in the hostel, and does barn chores. So some of you have probably met her there. Please join me in welcoming Tori.
I was not expecting that introduction. I'm so honored. Thank you, Pete, for putting up with me on my random mornings that I'd show up out of nowhere, helping out with barn, by the way. Class of 2019, it is an absolute honor to be here. As a proud Putney graduate, it's quite surreal to stand here at the podium and stare into an audience I was once part of. Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you to the faculty, staff, and the trustees for this rare opportunity. I read the email asking to be your speaker about 5 times when I received it. I even called Emily to make sure it was real. Thanks for clarifying. I was so completely honored, humbled, and intimidated by the opportunity to give back to an institution that has shaped my life in such a profound way, and to speak with such dynamic, intelligent, and passionate people such as yourselves. A special thank you to Marty, who made me a fresh pot of coffee to help ease my jet lag. Thank you, Tasha, for calming my nerves with laughter. Thank you again, and congratulations to the students and family for welcoming me into this wonderful and special moment. Class of 2019, woohoo, you did it! Also, a special shout out to the students that wore heels. I actually wore them for about 5 minutes, then changed into my Sperry's, so I really admire your dedication. June 2003 was my own Putney graduation, which I've been informed, to my shock, is when most of you were 2 and therefore not even in school. Given that, I now question whether I am still considered to be part of the young alumni group. I remember that day so vividly, waking up early to watch the sunrise on top of Water Tower. The way the golden sunlight touched the fields and cows made me wonder whether any other place in the world could be as magical, poetic, and powerful as Putney. I ran back to my room and keep and put on a toga. Yes, I wore a toga that I made, by the way, to the graduation ceremony. I also glued leaves on my arms for some reason, which in retrospect, I don't think I would recommend to anyone because they lasted for almost a week. In full garb and barefoot, I headed into the KDU in the middle of a rainstorm for my last time in my Putney career. Inside, I accepted my diploma. Thoughtfully painted on it were the Vermont apple orchards that I would run and daydream in as a child. What a fitting painting that was, as this place indeed changed me. I came to Putney as that little girl, blindly running around, and left as someone who aimed to develop a purpose. Putney helped form the foundations of my Northern Star. More importantly, it taught me that I was capable and worthy of even having one. What I remember the most about my graduation was the feeling I harbored deep inside of me, an intense fear. I had as much fear as I had excitement, a fear that was almost as severe as the intimidation I felt and still feel writing the speech and speaking in front of you. Putney represented so much good in my life, the most powerful being structure and acceptance. Growing up, I had often lived fulfilling the needs of others through the plethora of service jobs I worked with my mother in our low-income household. Some of my fondest memories were of waking up at 4 a.m. to fold newspapers before grade school, cleaning beautiful houses and admiring their fancy food, cable, and degrees I'd never even heard of before, and falling asleep while doing my homework and folding napkins at a steak and ale restaurant as my mother waited tables with an improbable smile. Through all these endeavors, the superhuman before me, my mother, represented someone who I wanted to build opportunities for, just as she was diligently trying to do so for me with every bit of energy. She still remains my hero, and I am honored to have her be my +1 today, just as she was at my Putney graduation. I wanted to challenge the notion that was thrust upon me from a young age, that where you were born would likely determine your life circumstance. Putney was a consistency for me, an order I did not previously have with its 7-day-a-week schedule, which in my time ranged from AM barn, sing, class, milk crunch, crew, broom ball, study hours, and the occasional late-night conversations about life with Abby Young and Alex Navarro Garces. It was a path towards upward mobility that instilled curiosity and direction. At Putney, and for the first time in my life, what mattered was not where I came from, but what I had the potential to do in my future. My identity was no longer determined by the judgment of others and my socioeconomic background. It was formed by my own means, via my own curiosity and drive that I was encouraged to further develop. Putney was the first place where people didn't judge me for having secondhand clothing and for never having been on a plane. It was actually considered very cool that one of the only pairs of pants I had were Carhartts that I would use cleaning houses with my mom with. That prepared me very well for winter AM barn. Thank you, Pete and Buddy. Therefore, being rid of this rare incubator after graduation was, to say the least, intimidating. I was not only losing a school, I was losing a community, a life, the foundations of a still murky northern star that was yearning to be built. I had no idea who I was and what direction my life would or should take. Yet, 16 years later, I realize how thankful I am for having had this fear, as it was an important component in motivating me to be the person I am before you, a person inspired and still yearning to build more. Fear of the unknown is often said to be one of the greatest fears of all. While I had to face the reality that I did not have all the answers at the age of 18, what I did take away from Putney was that action always led to a better solution than being complacent. That I could start obtaining some answers to the unknown, if not all of them, through taking action, sometimes just by saying yes. That helped me ease the fear, the confusion, the anxiety. Putney taught me to say yes to things, sometimes blindly, and take risks. I did everything from woods crew to milking cows, hiking to the source of the Connecticut River in Canada, and rowing from there to Putney with my crew team. Taking a calculus physics course that would both give me heart palpitations when I was called upon and induced a sense of magic when I learned a concept I once deemed impossible for myself to comprehend. A special thank you to Abijah Reed for not giving up on me, by the way. So in my post-Putney life, good things started to happen by saying yes, sometimes and almost always blindly. While a student at Wellesley College, I reached out to a professor at the Harvard Kennedy School, whose work I long admired. Inspired by his personal narrative class, I poured what was then my life story and reason why his work meant so much to me in that email, which likely was longer than most of my essays in college. I did not expect a response, but I was proud that I took a chance and I spoke my truth. To my shock and awe, the professor replied and offered to have me be an assistant on his book that he was writing called Why David Sometimes Wins, a book about the organizing process of Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers' groundbreaking victories, of which he participated in the 1960s. When I wasn't studying or working my 2 paid jobs as a translator and a dishwasher on campus, I would volunteer to help edit the footnotes of his book. The people and the events mentioned in these passages became a deep source of inspiration. In 1965, agricultural workers created one of the most impactful examples of community organizing from just an idea. Against the odds, they set new standards and successfully fought for workers' rights against grape growers in California. And during their 5-year strike, even convinced millions to stop eating grapes in solidarity. I gained so much from this experience. It gave me inspiration and made me feel less alone in my life. After all, a group of people decided overnight to become the strategic David that beat the toady Goliath. These were my heroes. This helped summon the courage to pursue other initially deemed unattainable experiences in my young life. Wanting to serve others, I decided to apply for, and later accepted, congressional internships in both the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate in Washington, D.C. The catch being that they were unpaid internships, a standard for DC, but a common barrier for low-income students like myself to participate in. That little voice of doubt driven by fear told me not to go. I had no money after all, no connections. I wasn't the type of pedigree they were looking for. I had never been to DC. I could not afford even one business suit. While my mind said no, my heart and these literary heroes who became my mentors whispered, give it a chance. So I took a leap and I ended up in 3 internships for Representative Pete Stark, Senator Joe Lieberman, and Senator Chris Dodd. I made things work by being scrappy, borrowing business suits from mentors and buying off the Goodwill rack. I couch surfed with friends of friends who I just met and eventually built a trusted network of Capitol Hill staffers who would let me live in their house for free in exchange for cleaning it and feeding their pets when they'd go on vacation. I ate for free in Capitol Hill receptions, which to my delight happened multiple times almost every day by interest groups, so thank you. After my internship day was complete, I'd take the DC Metro from Capitol Hill to Foggy Bottom Station, where I would change out of my business suit in a public restroom into a quite oily outfit made for my paying job, serving sandwiches at the Potbelly Sandwich Company. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it. I had gained not only experiences that had changed my life through saying yes, sometimes blindly, but little by little my confidence and my sense of self and understanding of this large and complex world beyond the confines of Putney was being formulated. I continued to move forward despite many perceived obstacles in my way. I learned that I could likely make it work, somehow, if I tried, or at least get further than I simply would if I held myself back. Soon, things that normally I doubted and disregarded for myself, things that seemed out of reach, that didn't seem in the cards, I started to do them anyway. I raised my hand more in class. I reached out to my heroes I read about in books, and sometimes I got a response. I took classes I previously thought was out of my reach and that I was unqualified for. I organized for organizations I admired. No matter what, I learned something. It confirmed a passion in myself, and through action, I gained a confidence that I had a stake in the world. I gained the wisdom that I did not have all the answers, but that I would gain more insight and answers through being open to new opportunities, simply because I was brave enough to say yes. Saying yes also led me to working on the presidential campaign of the then junior senator from Illinois, Barack Obama. After the professor that I worked with suggested I look into his campaign of a unknown junior senator from Illinois in 2007, I said yes to an opportunity to canvass for him and later moved to Chicago to work in the HQ for Obama for America. I sent out response letters to policy concerns. I spoke on the phone with and knocked on the doors of people from all walks of life. What seemed like a few months later led me to stand in front of the Grant Park stage on election night 2008, in awe of the candidate who built his reality through the audacity of hope. Each step taught me more about this complicated, large, and wonderful world, and about the type of person that I wanted to be in it. I realized that I could learn from others, and I could achieve things if I just took risks. I learned that I shouldn't just assume who I was, and that I should be doing things and testing things, and that I shouldn't confine myself to the expectations and the identity others assigned to me. For that, I remind you, you don't need to have all the answers at your high school graduation, but you do have the choice to obtain them through action. After that, and given that, I've learned that taking risk leads you on an adventure, but achieving the value of it happens when you appreciate the process. In that vein, my working in Silicon Valley and being a rock climber can therefore be viewed as inspiring and misleading, depending on whether you view these as goal-based processes or process-oriented endeavors. At Google, I love being part of the development process of building products that can potentially push our understanding of what we thought was technically possible and could perhaps lead to scalable and inexpensive solutions to everyday problems. Google Cardboard, for example, was created from an idea by just a few engineers in a lab in Paris and grew into a cheap and accessible solution to virtual reality. Suddenly, anybody can see the Grand Canyon or the Louvre as if they were really there with a $15 headset and their mobile phone, even if they couldn't afford a plane ticket. In Yosemite and Red Rocks, I love being intimately connected with nature and problem solving on a climbing route, challenging my view of what I am capable of in a very physical and immediate way. However, this work and my hobby is at odds with the heavily glorified objectives. The obsession with being the next Steve Jobs, the news of a 26-year-old overnight millionaire in a social media startup, and only seeing shots of people reaching the summit of mountains on Instagram, arms and hips, facing away from the camera with the hashtag live simply. But this oversimplifies things. It strips away something that's both at the core of a Putney education and is what I found to be the main source of my own and other success, the process itself. Yvon Chouinard, an accomplished alpinist, climber, and the founder of Patagonia, once said that he thought climbing Mount Everest was the ultimate and opposite of adventure. Taking a trip for 6 months, he said, you get into the rhythm of it. It feels like you can go on forever. But when you have 8 miles of fixed rope, Sherpas who put all the ladders in place, you go to your camp and you don't even need to lay out your sleeping bag or your tent. It's already laid out for you with a chocolate mint on top. And the whole process of climbing something like Everest is that it affects you and it entices some sort of spiritual and physical way. And if you compromise the process, you're a jerk when you start and you're a jerk when you get back. Taking a risk and saying yes should come hand to hand with accepting and appreciating the process, because that is where you learn and you gain your next step. Putney can be a bubble, but it's also a true microcosm of the real world, because the dishes don't wash themselves and the cows don't milk themselves. So you step up and you participate in ways you don't as a typical high school student. That is because there are no shortcuts in this world. And if you're part of the lucky few who do get them, I was not for the record, I found that connections can only get you halfway through the door. They don't help you thrive. During my internships, despite having an incredibly draining schedule, I'd find myself so excited that I'd dance around to bad music while getting ready for the day and stay a little bit longer in the sandwich shop to get to know my kind and compelling coworkers at night. I felt an irony that someone who was so consumed with work felt so free, loving the process versus only focusing on or expecting an immediate gratification of reaching the goal takes away from the ability for you to learn more about this world and about yourself. Take that with you in your life, because you will not always get what you want. You may need to work a little more than others to get there, but that decision to do the work will be one of the best decisions that you make in a society that's plagued with social media stories of moguls and summit shops, a warped sense of understanding of how those subjects actually got there in the first place. I am still evolving, but I know for certain that I could have not had the opportunities afforded to me thus far without doing the work. Don't believe the stories of the overnight millionaire. Visit the HP office in Palo Alto and see what it was like to have a little cash and obsessively iterate on a promising idea until it was a company. Don't think that an internship or a job role is necessarily useless because it's not what you see on a TV show like Silicon Valley or is marked as entry level. You have an opportunity to have a deep understanding of the organization you're working with, your colleagues, and a place to build up from. And in time, through taking the risk to say yes and enjoying the process, through learning more not only about yourself but the world, it suddenly starts to become less and less about you. You start to contextualize and see the way you can affect others and the environment. You see others who have had the same privileges, the same defeats, or perhaps even greater struggles to overcome than your own, and you empathize with them. And as you learn more about the world, I hope it drives home the fact that we need leaders who can help problem solve more than ever. Grace Hopper once said, "A ship in port is safe, but that's not what ships were built for." As a woman in tech, I internalized her words as I learned about the stories of colleagues who often felt isolated or ignored due to being different in a male-dominated industry. Colleagues not afraid to speak out and organize, especially a brave woman whose name is Claire, who inspired me to also be an organizer in what was later called the largest tech worker movement in Silicon Valley history, the Google Walkout. I felt an obligation to bring voices together and to fight for a company that should have employees as diverse and dynamic as its users. I wanted to give a platform for those who felt voiceless but potentially not in a place to fight for themselves. What started as an idea quickly became a startup with a mission to drive company diversity through suggested policy changes and a worldwide employee walkout. This work extended well beyond making protest signs. Fighting doubt of our impact, we established a level of trust with our peers as we juggled logistics, recruited volunteers, and collaboratively grew our strategy through fast-paced iteration and action. I was an organizer in the Googleplex, the company HQ in Mountain View. We had no idea of the outcome, if anybody would listen, or what the impact might be on our job and physical security. We just knew that the timing was right. After waking up once again in the early morning to coordinate day of logistics, what was assumed to be a few hundred participants quickly ballooned to 20,000 employees worldwide walking out with us. Leading a crowd of thousands under the view of 2 press helicopters turned from intimidating to empowering as I felt a comfort in our collective mobilizing. Later, Google, Airbnb, and other companies would announce that they would end forced arbitration. This experience validated a belief that the professor at the United Farm Workers had originally taught me, that resourcefulness can sometimes compensate for a lack of resources, that you sometimes can't wait around for the more powerful to solve the problems affecting you. Organizing in the walkout and supporting my many marginalized colleagues helped me gain a deeper understanding of the unique perspective and skills that my unorthodox past had instilled in me. Taking this risk summoned a courage to accept myself and an appetite to take a more active role in helping others who are still powerless and voiceless, including people from my own community who are not as lucky as I have been. It inspired me to look beyond my own bubble and to think of those who are not privileged enough to be in a position where they have something like this to protest. Taking a risk and building something new is messy. There are so many intangibles and improbables, but take a moment and think about all the decisions people had made for a greater purpose and try to envision what the world would be like without them. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez, Malala, Bill and Melinda Gates, the founder of Me Too, Tarana Burke, and your teachers. Try to put yourself in their shoes and realize all the intangibles they had. They took ownership because they believed in the possibility of making this world a better place than from when they arrived in it. I want you to think about those moments because you will be confronted with many doubts in your life. I certainly had as a woman in tech. I certainly was as a low-income student working 2 jobs in college. Think about the flame you can torch that can motivate you and that can be your northern star. Realize that along this journey, you will face inevitable disappointment, but know that through the self-discovery, you should not lose track of being a good person. Avoid getting lost in your own interests or be blind to others. Don't accidentally perpetuate bias and harm. In 2004, Amazon's machine learning team had created software aimed at objectively and efficiently reviewing job applicant resumes in order to source top talent. What could go wrong? Computers, not humans, could help conduct due diligence on promising applicants. The problem was, as it turned out, that the results had a heavy bias against women. The program was not rating technical position posts in an objective way. This was because Amazon's model was trained by using 10 years of resumes submitted and accepted for jobs, which turned out to be largely male applicants, making the software believe that male candidates were preferable. Words containing women as well as women's colleges like my own were downgraded. While Amazon edited the software to try and make it gender neutral, there was no way to determine whether it would be rid of any biases. In other categories, computers were learning what was considered attractive through observing the patterns of our society. Therefore, machine learning can sometimes provide a limited scope of reality because of our own biases. Seeing a postmortem that points the finger back at us should be motivation to be somebody with empathy, aware of their own biases, and actively trying to eliminate them. As David Foster Wallace pointed out in his own graduation speech, "This is water." The really important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline and effort and being able to truly care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in a myriad of petty little unsexy ways every day. I was reminded of that through the example of our very own Senator, Bernie Sanders. In the Senate staff cafeteria, a no-frills basement, dining room in the nearly 3 miles of underground tunnels that exist under Capitol Hill. I looked over the meal selection that then included freedom fries on the menu. Yes, there was freedom fries on the menu for a few periods, temporarily. I spent a few dollars from my Potbelly sandwich earnings on a chili bowl. I sat down, exhausted and somewhat defeated, indeed in my own head, and looked up. To my right was Senator Sanders. It was quite odd for me to see him there, as I seldom saw senators in this cafeteria. They had their own pristine dining hall in the Capitol building itself, with waiters and food custom made for their space. Staff and interns like me were not privileged to utilize it without explicit permission. But as he walked through the cafe, everyone seemed to know his name, not because of his stature, but because he was simply the guy who would often choose to leave the ivory tower, stop by, eat there, and get to know people instead. As he sat down, my biggest regret of Washington, D.C. was not telling him how much I appreciated that he truly walked the walk. In closing, I hope that you will take your graduation and your Putney experience with you for the rest of your life. I hope you remember how important you are to so many and how important you can be to so many others with purpose. If it's been one thing I've learned thus far since my own graduation from Putney, it's been that we have the power to create change for others when we realize our own purpose, our own Northern Star. This starts by translating any fear, any anxiety of the unknown that you faced with, and simply act, by being a curious person. And this comes with the territory, but I must say that this journey is still going to be both wonderful and hard. You will face loneliness, you will be disappointed, you will fail sometimes. But let me tell you, those are the best parts. I don't want you to be dismayed. They lead to epiphanies, happiness, ahas, community, truth, and purpose. Try embracing that. Go forward and enjoy taking a part of Putney with you on this incredible journey that begins now. Think of our founder, Carmelita Hinton, and the iconic work she did. Know that this campus was once a barn before she arrived and started to move forward with an idea. So I ask you, what will you do with this wild and precious life of yours? I can't wait to find out. Congratulations, class of 2019.
I believe it's time for diplomas. The diplomas are awarded in random order, so don't let that make you nervous and don't try to figure out what the system is. Isadora Snyder. Lucas Utica. Quentin Bias. Anna Elizabeth Francis. Omar Williams Bass.
Margarita Sheldon Brown. May Laurel Ann Hartwell. Alexi Sebastian Clark. Cooper Riley Johnson. Emmanuel Ellsworth Keppel. Kai Stoper Hammond. Dylan Richard Ray. Andrew Llewellyn Nordell. Olive Fox Rowell. Tejas Aditya. Isaac Joseph Rosedale. Ethelyn Beatrice Santos. Debo Fountain. Sophie Ada Lurs. George Dewey Corin. S.S. Stewart Moody. Maxwell Haven Chapman. Shira Shireen Genuine. Georgia Eden Karbelnikov. Emma Shooting Watson Elk. Rintaro Tanaka. Katerina Nur Lexon.
Oh my God.
Ivy Ariel Leon Scott. Quinn Holden Alpert.
Oh my God.
Archer Stone Park. Alexandra Jordan Billingsley. Yatong Tian.
Lisa, I love you.
Shangyu Li. Tom Zhang. Zhong Ao Liang Zhuang. Ethan Cole Hubbard. Sophia Von Baden Baker. Joelle Ever. Cameron Joseph Anderson. Anna Alessandra Apalato. Jude Michael Farley. Oliver Ruben Rosen. Macaulay Jackson Fisher. Maya Grace Wolf Livingston. Kichi No. Sabine Thomas Gary. Jules Alexander Fisher. Olivia, it's kind of, this art. Georgia Castillo. Margareta Bertrand Wolf. Bella Grace Bonell. Patrick Ballinger Lewis. Gloria Canyala Amahunga. Magnolia Clarice Detmer. Congratulations.